this is. Right? Yeah.
What is it?
Come on, Jimmy. Seriously, the time is up. People are hip to this kind of stuff. I'm here tonight to blow the lid off it, to be the whistleblower. For years now, talk show hosts, people on television, people in sitcoms have been hired by the government to throw you off the track, to distract you, to make you laugh and stuff like that, make you happy and docile so you don't know what's really going on. You know, and they get out there in the woods in a circle naked and they decide these things.
On November 13th, 2014, Jim Carrey went on to Jimmy Kimmel and he talked about the no-no things. And I got to say, I remember that clip and I remember thinking to myself, that seems like Jim Carrey's just taking the piss. He's just having fun, right? Well, then Jim Carrey dropped out of Hollywood and kind of stopped doing acting roles. He stopped doing comedy, too. He basically went completely off the radar, and he was one of the most famous comedians / actors in the world at the time. Post Epstein doc drop, it sounds a little bit more not like a joke, doesn't it? And that brings me to arguably the biggest break from the Epstein doc drop that we have found yet. This went crazy viral yesterday, including from myself. On August 9th of 2019, United States Attorney's Office from the Southern District of New York, penned by United States Attorney Jeffrey S. Berman, said, earlier this morning, the Manhattan Correctional Center confirmed that Jeffrey Epstein, who faced charges brought by this office of engaging in the sex trafficking of minors, has been found unresponsive in his cell and pronounced dead shortly thereafter. Today's events are disturbing, and we are deeply aware of their potential to present yet another hurdle to giving Epstein's many victims their day in court. To those brave young women who have already come forward and to the many others who have yet to do so, let me reiterate that we remain committed to standing for you, and our investigation of the conduct charged in the indictment, which included a conspiracy count, remains ongoing. But here's the problem. Jeffrey Epstein allegedly took his own life the morning of August 10th. So why was that letter drafted on the 9th? More disturbing, the letter itself says Friday. Epstein definitively took his own life on the morning of the 10th, according to the official story. So not only did they get it wrong in terms of the date on that letter, but they also got the day wrong. So they have Friday the 9th, when in fact Epstein allegedly was found unresponsive the morning of Saturday the 10th, around 6:40 a.m. And you may be thinking to yourself, it's just a typo. It's a nothing burger. Well, here's the problem. There was an additional draft of that document, the actual document that went out, that was on August 10th, the actual day that they claimed that he took his own life, in which it is modified ever so slightly, that only modification being that they added the words apparent suicide to the beginning of that letter. So the preliminary draft, dated before he had actually done anything to himself, or anybody had done anything to himself, said that he was just found unresponsive and then pronounced dead. The actual final draft, dated with the appropriate date, says that it was via apparent suicide. Now it gets weirder. Berman, the attorney who penned that letter, less than 1 year later, it was announced by Bill Barr, the attorney general at the time, that Berman was resigning. Berman unexpectedly countered that announcement by saying, no, I'm not. I am not resigning. Then on June 20th of 2020, AG Barr removed Berman from his position. And then it was confirmed after Trump denied having any involvement in the removal of Berman that in fact Trump had been involved in that removal. Now you may be thinking to yourself, Clint, that is awfully strange, but I'm still not convinced. So let me remind you of some other findings that came from those document drops. On Thursday of August 8th, 2019, one day before that preliminary draft was sent, we have an email with both the from and to redacted, as well as the names of the inmates redacted. But being that it is in the Epstein file, we have to assume that this was about the transfer of an inmate into Jeffrey Epstein's cell or out of Jeffrey Epstein's cell. Either way, both the name and the inmate number are redacted. More notable, the actual transfer date, it says, please schedule the transfer for Friday, 8/9/19. Now, there's another tidbit that you have to remember. The prison guards in that jail fell asleep that night. They were supposed to be inspecting Epstein's cell every 30 minutes. But in fact, around 10:40 p.m. on Friday the 9th, they did their very last spot check. What's even stranger is that at 10:39 and 42 seconds, so approximately 10:40 p.m. on Friday night, the exact same time that they are allegedly doing their last check of the inmates to make sure that they are okay, that they are not injuring themselves. We now have new footage from that jail block that shows a figure clad in orange a la prison jumpsuit that is seen walking. You can't see him very well, but you see clearly that there is a figure in orange that is walking towards or away from Jeffrey Epstein's cell. I'm not sure which. Needless to say, it's extraordinarily unusual either way in that you would not expect a prisoner to be out of his cell at 10:40 p.m. at night. And it gets weirder from there in that they are now saying that the device that Epstein allegedly used on himself is no longer believed to have been what he actually used to take his own life. It should also be noted that Epstein met with his attorneys at 7:49 p.m. Friday night. His attorneys described him as, quote, upbeat. The two guards, which were assigned to check up on Epstein, did not do so. They, in fact, falsified the records, saying that they did when they had not, because they had allegedly fallen asleep at their desk for over 3 hours. And let us not forget that there was also 2 additional cameras that were facing Epstein's jail cell that malfunctioned and had no footage whatsoever. There was also another camera which malfunctioned and had no footage whatsoever. We only got this footage after demanding it about 5 years later. So what are we to conclude from all of this? Well, firstly, we're being lied to. As to the conclusion as to the true nature of his early demise, I can't be certain. Many people are obviously pontificating and thinking aloud that perhaps this indicates that there was foreknowledge and that Epstein was removed from his cell. I am not so certain that is the case. In fact, I lean in the opposite direction, that this was premeditated and this was carried out by the state itself. The reason I lean in that direction is simply because this guy carried such immense secrets about so many rich and powerful people. I think it's kind of far-fetched to believe that they would risk him being removed and, I don't know, flown to Tel Aviv or to his New Mexico property or some other random location and expected to live his life, given that he wasn't exactly a small-time figure. He was one of the most famous people in the world at that time. I just think that's a bit of a stretch. I think that if you're going to tie up the loose ends, you do it definitively. Now, to be clear, I'm open to both possibilities. The only thing I'm not open to is essentially the FBI's narrative on this at this point. They have demonstrated such an immense ability to lie to us. I don't know why anyone would be taking them seriously at this junction. They've proven themselves to be so full of shit. I don't think anybody is actually taking them seriously, so much so that, in fact, the FBI had an investigation into co-conspirators along with Epstein, which Kash Patel, in my opinion, perjured himself to Congress about.
Did Epstein traffic these young women too, besides himself?
Himself. There is no credible information. None. If there were, I would bring the case yesterday.
Now watch closely. Watch closely here.
Trafficked to other individuals. And the information we have, again, is limited.
So the answer is no one?
For the information that we have.
In the files?
In the case file.
Okay. Now, President Trump.
The information that we have. So he knows he's lying. When he says that, he goes, the information that we have. He knows he's lying, and he's wondering, hey, is this working? Is this going well? Am I lying effectively?
In the doc drop, we have a chart of some of the co-collaborators or co-conspirators: Darren Indyke, Harry Billar, Richard Kahn, Ghislaine Maxwell, Leslie Groff, Jean-Luc Brunel, as well as 6 additional perpetrators or suspects which have not been named and are inexplicably still being redacted. So what do I think is really going on here? Well, a cover-up, for sure. But don't take my word for it. Here's Ariban Menashe, a former Israeli intelligence officer, and what he had to say just a few days ago.
What will pressure Netanyahu to release the real information that no one has at the moment?
In my opinion, if there's a real deal
between the Americans and the Iranians, and it's going towards that. Netanyahu will try to sabotage it. One of the ways he'd sabotage it is by putting out Epstein material against U.S. government officials, including Trump. New material that wasn't seen before in public. So it's not just Trump. I know that Howard Lutnick is mentioned. There are other officials.
Not just Trump, other officials too. Yes. And he'll try to sabotage the whole negotiation.
Now, maybe you're thinking to yourself, well, that still sounds far-fetched to me. Maybe this guy's sour grapes. And I'd say, sure, maybe. Except for the fact that Netanyahu was scheduled to have his 7th visit with Trump at the end of February, and that meeting just got pushed up. They're going to have it next week, which tells me that Netanyahu is very concerned, based off of reporting that says that the Trump administration was having productive talks with the Iranians, that now they are making sure that those productive talks fall through, because the ultimate end game in all of this, all along, has been to make sure that the United States, your blood and treasure, and maybe your sons, go and fight and die on behalf of Israel in the deserts of Iran, which has left many of us feeling the same way Tim Burchett does.
Should there be an investigation or a special counsel investigation?
I don't know. I'm not an attorney. I just find them guilty and hang them publicly. I mean, that's not over the top either. I'm ready. I'm over it. It disgusts me. I'm big on clarity and transparency, and you know, that's a good reason people don't trust government, either party.
But you don't believe what the Justice Department is saying?
I don't know. You know, I don't. I think I don't. I don't trust.
No, I don't. Well, thank you for being honest, Tim. That's how anybody else paying attention in America feels too. No, I don't trust the Justice Department. I'd have to be an absolute imbecile to still trust them at all. Have you seen these prices? I'm talking about precious metals, obviously. Gold and silver markets have been absolutely ripping. There's a massive pullback happening right now, which is to be expected in any bull market. But if you've been considering getting your hands on some physical, which is always my preference, I do not do paper contracts, always physical. If you want to learn why gold and silver have exploded and why they could potentially explode even higher in 2026, then I've got the perfect guide for you. It's from my partners over at Goldco. They're an amazing company. They're supportive of this show, and I am fully supportive of them. So head over to clintlikesgold.com and get your free 2026 gold and silver kit. And big news, this month, Goldco is celebrating America's 250th anniversary with limited time bonus offer. Get up to 10% free gold or silver plus free storage and a free home safe with minimum cash purchase. Go to clintlikesgold.com for details. Again, that's clintlikesgold.com. And if you want to go full schizo, let's hear what Asmund Gold had to say about this.
People going crazy think they found a code word for human meat? Wait, what? Hope you are feeling better. Did we analyze the jerky? Why didn't we get jerky this week? Super cool. Beef jerky, delicious. Delicious lunch, beef jerky. A small insulated bag would be fine. I don't recommend checking it. No need for crazy amounts of ice. One should do. There is one bag of beef jerky in the fridge. Please get it. Also, Blank has more at her place. Please get it from her as well. I suppose it needs to be in a cold, insulated bag. Just wanted to touch base about jerky. JE said he was going to start eating regular food again, so he might be eating less jerky. He said he has 6 bags of it in a downstairs freezer. Steve needs a 6 to 8 ounce portion of jerky. I gave you all the jerky we had, and it lasted only half the amount of time it was meant to. I felt like it was more important for you to have the jerky to eat during my time off. The rest will go to you at LSJ when I arrive. Little St. James Island. That's what LSJ must mean. So logically, that means that they were doing this off of the island. Steve Hansen is sending jerky to your attention overnight. I believe it should be enough to get him through. Jeffrey Epstein is asking to bring him more jerky. Is there a time I could come say hi and drop off the beef jerky? He will bring you to taste his new jerky recipe from the restaurant. He sends a warm hello. He's working at a restaurant called Cannibal. Guys, the restaurant's called Cannibal and Cooks. Wait for it, beef jerky and steak. Can blank make some jerky?
Look, I'm not going to jump to any conclusions that jerky automatically means what they're thinking it might mean. However, when you look through these emails, which I have a lot, you can watch my solo episode from a couple days ago. I recapped some of the weird ones. There's a lot more that are weird, talking about pizza and grape soda and thank you for the pizza party, and we need a certain duration of time with the pizza. It's like, who talks like that? And now you've got just a litany of messages about beef jerky, and all of them come across very strangely. And then you add to that the fact that they're talking about a restaurant with the name or the word cannibal in it.
Are there any recorded images of Jeffrey Epstein with beef jerky at all? No, there are no recorded or publicly known images of Jeffrey Epstein with beef jerky. Who sends beef jerky to a lab for analysis? Wait, what? I was looking for the beef jerky as I knew it was in my suitcase, and I thought that maybe I left it on the beach, only to find a small plastic bag near my dog's bed. I'll email Francis to make us some more, as I need 6 to 8 ounces to send to the lab, and I'll forward to Francis the info to send to the lab directly. Guys, I think something's going on.
And then you add on to that the fact that the Todd Blanche, the DOJ guy who came out and talked about this a week ago, said that, yeah, they were not going to unredact any of the footage of actual victims. So we don't actually know the worst aspects of this. This is all of the stuff that they thought was benign, and we're still losing our minds because there's so much crazy shit here, even with immense redactions. Let's be honest, we should be losing our minds. This is one of the craziest stories we've ever come across, and it's one of the most overt and egregious and terrible cover-ups we've ever witnessed. Now, I want you to ask yourself a couple questions. If those emails, those multiple emails talking about beef jerky are all benign, why do we have a bunch of redactions when it's just emails about beef jerky? Why? Why are there any redactions at all? Strange, right? Okay, let's add to it that we now know that according to Jeffrey Epstein himself, in an interview with Steve Bannon, which, by the way, why is Steve Bannon catching no flack for having attempted to rehabilitate Epstein's image just before he perished? Weird, right? But anyways, Jeffrey Epstein says that he got his mansion in New Mexico explicitly because he wanted to hire scientists from Los Alamos, one of the most famous, like, military, dark, deep state research facilities that we are aware of.
So let's back up. So why did I buy a ranch in New Mexico in 1993? So that gives you some sense. So I would have funded it in 1990. Los Alamos, which was the high energy lab up in New Mexico, was losing all its scientists.
And Los Alamos, it was where Oppenheimer and where a lot of the nuclear weapons program, the bomb.
That's where the Manhattan Project.
Manhattan Project was
yes,
Los Alamos, and you bought your property out in New Mexico to be near that?
Yes, because the scientists were going to be, they cut the funding for high energy physics. But the people who worked in Los Alamos would still be in the Santa Fe area. I wanted to see if we could build tools so others smarter than me could help investigate it.
And that was the beginning of your concept of the Santa Fe Institute?
Yes.
And Santa Fe Institute was founded to do study in this type of...
Can these areas of strange things be described by some form of mathematics?
Now, I want you to ask yourself this. Do you think that those scientists were allowed to be hired by Jeffrey Epstein without the CIA knowing, without the DOD knowing? Scientists that were working on some of the most top secret projects in American history, and you think that they were being plucked and hired by Jeffrey Epstein without their knowledge? Well, if you're thinking, maybe, which I think you're crazy, but if you're thinking maybe, I want you to also understand that Jeffrey Epstein text message to Steve Bannon, in which Steve says, on the coup, I'm deep in the middle of blank. And then Epstein responds, K, going into a skiff, talk tomorrow. Now, I don't have a date on that. I'm assuming it's around the same time that Bannon was, buddy with Epstein in 2019 or 2018. But a SCIF, for those that aren't aware, stands for Sensitive Compartmented Information Facility. It is used specifically for top secret information that is placed in an accredited, secured room or area designed to prevent unauthorized access, eavesdropping, or surveillance. So why in the fuck was Jeffrey Epstein going into a skiff? A full decade after he had been charged and convicted for solicitation of a minor for prostitution. I don't know, but we sure as hell need to know. We need to know why this guy who was facing major charges at that time was headed into a skiff. It's not just me and you being suspicious of all of this. We've got Prince Andrew's ex-girlfriend saying this.
I don't even think Jeffrey Epstein's dead anymore, to be honest.
You don't think Jeffrey Epstein's dead?
No, I don't. I think he might be alive.
What would lead you to that conclusion?
I'd seen one of those emails, one of the ones that ended up in the files, and I think that prison guard needs to be interviewed. The one that he said he saw the bodies being switched out.
So your honest belief is that Jeffrey Epstein is alive somewhere?
I said it's not my honest belief, but I think it's a possibility.
Where might he be?
Israel, everyone is saying.
Israel, everyone is saying. Lady Victoria Hervey, who I've never heard of, but seems like a real scumbag, given that she's the ex-girlfriend of Prince Andrew. But setting that aside, I think it could be a misdirect, or I think maybe she's being honest. I don't know which. All I know is that the official story about Epstein is about as suspect as anything I have ever come across. I think we all justifiably feel that way. I think we are all justified to feel that way. I think we all actually ought to be much angrier than we are, if you can believe it, as angry as I am. The fact that I'm even speaking into a microphone instead of just going out on the streets and losing my shit means that I'm handling this very, very calmly, as I'm sure most of you are. Trump keeps saying that he wants this to go away, that he wants to move on, that he wants to focus on other things.
I think it's really time for the country to get onto something else. Really. Now that nothing came out about me, other than it was a conspiracy against me, literally, by Epstein and other people. But I think it's time now for the country to maybe get onto something else.
What would you say to people who feel like they haven't gotten justice, Mr. President?
Something that people care about.
The answer and the response to that should and shall and will be forevermore no and fuck you. We are not moving on. This is the apex. This is, as I said, the heart of darkness. If we don't get justice on this, you can forget about having justice on anything else ever again. If you can't get justice for child victims of sex trafficking to the rich and powerful, then do not expect legitimate elections or deportations or to end the war on terror and the surveillance state or anything else. At its core, this story is about high-level blackmail, debauchery, depravity at the highest levels of power. If we can't get to the bottom of that, we can never reclaim our government. Therefore, this should take precedent over all of our internecine battle issues. From the left or the right, we ought to actually be able to come together for once in our lives about this very, very important topic. Existential, I might say. But who knows? Maybe I'm a lunatic. If you think I am, correct me in the comments. And if you enjoyed this episode, hit the like button and do subscribe, and please share it around, as this topic will not be very algorithmically friendly, as I'm sure you'd suspect. Love you guys. Peace.
Subscribe to Liberty Lockdown. Great podcast. Clint is tight.